What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about Blackstone. Blackstone is one of the largest investors in real estate in the United States. They manage nearly $600 billion in their global real estate portfolio. And they're based out of New York City. And they invest in all kinds of real estate, whether it's commercial, residential, hospitality, tourism, industrial. They're basically one of the largest players across the board in the real estate industry. And they're somebody who has extensive research capabilities and is somebody that you need to keep your eyes on when analyzing what's going on in the real estate market. Now, I find it really interesting that Blackstone has been making a number of sales recently that indicate that they may be feeling bearish on the real estate market as a whole heading into the rest of this year. Now, recently, they put the Bellagio up for sale, or weighing offers rather, in the famous Las Vegas casino. And this is very, very interesting because they purchased the Bellagio only in 2019 for $4.25 billion. I'd be curious to see how much they end up getting for the Bellagio now that we're through COVID, that the impacts on the casino and hospitality industry has really seemed to come down from that. But they obviously don't have a whole lot of faith in this property because they've only held it for about 4 years. Now, they also recently, earlier this month, actually this week rather, announced that they would be selling $3.1 billion worth of industrial and logistical properties to Prologis. Now, Prologis is one of the largest real estate investment trusts in the United States as well, and they basically solely invest in industrial and logistical properties, and so they know that market really well. They wanted to purchase these properties from Blackstone, and they've done a number of deals in the past. They've done, as it says down here, more than a dozen transactions in the past 11 years. And so that it's obviously interesting, but I find it really interesting that Blackstone is unloading not only hospitality properties, but also industrial properties. And you can see it here, another hospitality property that they've offloaded. They basically sold the JW Marriott San Antonio Hill Country Resort and Spa to Ryman Hospitality for $800 million. Obviously not as big of a property as the Bellagio, but still notable. Good looking property right there, as you can see. And in addition to that, they're also selling more of their logistics and industrial properties. Here it says that they sold $800 million roughly worth of real estate in Japan related to industrial and logistics. I find it very interesting that Blackstone is offloading these properties, particularly in these industries. But something else that's really interesting is that if you look back at their press releases on their website, earlier this year, they weren't announcing anything. Obviously now they're announcing these different sales to Prologis and of the San Antonio JW Marriott and the properties in Japan. But if you go back towards January, February, December, they weren't announcing any sales. And I find that really interesting. Obviously, they're probably buying and selling properties all the time, but they're only going to release press releases for their largest purchases or sales. Now, they weren't really purchasing anything back then, but they also weren't really selling anything. So what's changed? Why are they looking to offload everything now starting late April, May? I think that when you look across the board, it really is interesting. I really think that this tweet by EPB Research is really interesting because it talks about the housing market, right? It's slightly different than the commercial real estate market, but in the housing market, you can see in certain subsets and certain pockets, things are starting to break down. So in San Francisco, Seattle, you're starting to see significant drops from their peaks. In places like Denver, Dallas, Phoenix, Las Vegas, you're starting to see cracks. You're not seeing them tank yet, but you're starting to see some relief off the highs. But in the Northeast and in Florida and in the Carolinas, you're seeing that basically these prices want to hold up and they don't want to crack yet. And so that contributes more to the narrative that people have behind basically, there's not enough supply to bring down prices, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, housing's different than commercial real estate, but even in these markets, like in New York, where we're seeing housing hold up, we're seeing cracks in the commercial real estate market. In New York, 2 properties sold for steep discounts this last week. One property on West 55th Street went for 40% below their ask. Here, I'll read this. Duart Media, an Academy Award-winning film studio, sold its longtime home on West 55th Street for $28.5 million, a whopping 40% discount from the $48 million it sought when it placed the building on the market last year. And a few blocks south, TA Realty sold a Diamond District office building for just over half the $43 million it paid for it in 2017. They go on to talk more about some of the different deals that have been going on, and a lot of these properties are selling for less than they sold just a few years ago. Yeah, so even in New York, housing market stays hot. The commercial real estate market is showing some systemic signs of pain. And that is particularly troublesome with these office buildings, as some people have proposed, like in this article in The Atlantic, they basically go on to say that this could be a major cause of another 2008 type recessionary shock to the markets, shock to the economy. Basically, in this article, they go on to talk about obviously the vacancy rates in commercial real estate and what that means for a city like New York that relies on commercial real estate for its taxes, as it says right here. But then also basically what that means for people's retirements. Now, a lot of these pensions, a lot of these retirement 401k companies, they're invested in a ton of commercial real estate, a ton of office buildings. They never thought that any of this would go tits up. Obviously it is. And, I think that could be foreshadowing to what we're going to see in the rest of the real estate market. Obviously, you want to follow the big people like Blackstone who are making their moves. This portion here that I have highlighted is quite interesting. It talks about empty offices also contribute to lower retail sales and public transport usage. In New York City, weekday subway trips are 65% of their 2019 level, though they're trending up, and public transport revenue has declined by $2.4 billion. Meanwhile, more than 40,000 retail sector jobs lost since 2019 have yet to return. There you go. So the office buildings impacts retail, it impacts public transport, it impacts everything. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you found this video to be interesting, and please take a look at my newsletter. The link will be in the description. I'm creating the top newsletter for active traders, and if you have interest in the real estate markets, equities markets, or basically just making money, it will be great content for you. Please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like if you enjoyed. Thanks and have a great day.